Good morning. It's Andy from PCR Global with just a weekly update on what we've been doing here. Been off comms a little bit lately because I've been busy on some of my own tasks and taking a little bit of time out, but if you're interested in following what we've been doing, then here we go. So first photograph, we got John, one of our main and lead Temporary Works tutors, out and about on site here. He's with Steve Roach from J. Randall Roofing, doing some site inspections, which is fantastic. So we can go on site, we can assist the guys, and then we can also take that into the classroom. Very important to know your tutors' backgrounds and where they're coming from. What else we've been up to? Okay, moving slowly. I think this was yesterday morning, nice and early, or early enough anyway. I just jumped in to see what the guys were doing because they were all doing a quick meeting to start the day off, and everybody looks pretty happy there. I know Steph said he was pretty cold. I think his boiler's playing up. Certainly Ian was going out on the ground, as you can see there, but certainly everybody happy, which is what we want to try and see and keep. Bespoke Training. I don't know if Steph's trying to tell me there's a fire there, but Bespoke Training, I know the guys have been busy developing some bespoke fire marshal courses. The importance always with fire safety, and I've been involved in a couple of serious fire incidents myself, the importance is that it's not just classroom, okay? It is very important to take that on board, that there should be, obviously, especially fire marshals, being supported with some type of physical pulling the pin on fire extinguishers. It's quite often, when I do this, I take fire extinguishers out on the ground, we could be training nannies, for high net worth individuals down in London, but the first thing I always do is warn the guys about the fire extinguishers, the noises that they make. And it does come as quite a shock to some people when they pull the pin and pull the trigger on that CO2 fire extinguisher. It's quite loud. But yeah, certainly Andrew Collins assisting there with developing the content, as always. The same as this one, really. So Andrew's knee deep at the minute in developing our sort of the documentation set, and how the set enhances the training but also speeds up the training, makes it easier for people, and we also get our data that we can monitor, and then we can go back in and look at that data. Andrew's working pretty close at the minute on our sort of failure process. If somebody fails a course, people do fail courses. We rarely have failures, but we're at that stage now where we can actually focus on that bit for the quality of the organisation. So if we receive a failure, then it does go into sort of the failure management system. So we can really draw that out then as to why. Could we have identified, if it's more than a one-day course, could we have identified during that course if somebody was on a sort of a crash course because they needed that more support? Then we can move into our individual learning plans then, which we will do for people. So really, I think an organisation that doesn't have a failure management system, that's pretty good. Is an area where sort of we can all improve, because at the end of the day it's all about the students, isn't it? What we got here, we got Phil. This is Phil actually then delivering that fire safety course. Fantastic, Phil. Everybody is happy. I always say to the guys, these guys look really happy, and sometimes I see somebody, then they're not smiling, and they'll say, of course they're not smiling, and they're actually doing some study on that, they're thinking. But we have a little bit of a giggle about it, but everybody seems to be happy on our courses anyway, which is really good. And if you're not, please come back and tell us, because if you're not happy, then we're doing something. We're not doing something as good as we can be doing. What have we got here? Then we got John. Yeah, Temporary Works. Again, everybody happy. And I spotted somebody on this when I was looking through the photographs yesterday. I spotted a very special person, Miss Kaylee Bagshaw. So here you are, Kale. Yeah, fantastic. Great to see you on one of our courses. Interesting with Kaylee. Kaylee Bagshaw. Fantastic person. A really good, motivated individual. We used to work together in the same company. Well, Kaylee used to work with myself, John, Phil, Andrew, and Steph and Ian as well, because we all worked in the same company once upon a time. So it's really good to meet back up with Kaylee and swap some war stories about back in the day, and it's fantastic to see people moving on. Kaylee is absolutely so motivated. It's fantastic, and we love motivated people, of course we do. And motivated people move on to better things. Fantastic. So this photograph, again, it is John, is it? On IOSH Managing Safely this time. Yeah, people are happy again. Interestingly, John, I think Bryn is trying to get away there. I hope he didn't actually get away. And this is John running the guys through, looks like some accident investigation. Yeah, really, I love the IOSH Managing Safely course. It really is a very, very good course. And we've got some good things planned in for this Managing Safely course. We already have support of our portal. Many people are switching to us for this Managing Safely course, which we're really glad about. But also we're going to take this to the next level in the next couple of months and wait out for that. That's really, really good. Another course, what's this? SMSTS refresher. Again, people happy. Fantastic. Well done, John. And then what have we got here? Phil, I think this might have been an SMSTS refresher as well. Or actually, this might have been an SMSTS day release. We do the day release courses again. We've been asked lately about doing weekend courses. Yep. Our guys are biting at the bit, chomping at the bit. If people need weekend courses, then we will do our best to accommodate. Of course we will. And then just another photograph then of Phil. Again, looks like SMSTS doing the initial site layout and taking the guys through everything. I love this visualization. It's fantastic. I'm very visual myself. Even though I'm quite a wordy person when I'm talking, I'm learning to try and be as succinct as I can, but I'm certainly visual when I look at things. If I'm looking at that now, if I'm thinking about security on that site, I'm already thinking in my head of the CPNI, the Centre for the Protection of National Infrastructure, and the information it's got on that. Okay, this is health and safety, construction related. CPNI is security, but it's visual. You can look at that. You can talk people through the layers of security. You can talk people through. If I was using that for a security course, I would be talking about the adversary timeline. What do we mean by the adversary timeline? It is the time it takes an adversary to get from the perimeter to a vulnerable area internally, and that's where you put your layers of defence in. And then you can work that back by doing some scenario analysis. I love that. I love that photo. Phil, thanks for dropping that in. And then we've got, last but not least, Ian. Well, 23 years in the military. I think he's making one of our guys, one of the guys from Axiom there, Matthew. I think he's making Matthew stand to attention, I think. I hope you're not, Ian. But absolutely fantastic. At least Matthew looks happy anyway. Fantastic, mate. Thanks for that dropping in there. The next thing I want to talk about, I think this is really important. It's been an interesting week for me. I came across this standard because I was supporting a company who is looking to implement compliance. Compliance is a massive word. It's really got a simple meaning, but the organisation I'm supporting, they already have 45,001. They already have 9,001. It's an international company, but we're talking about compliance. So my first question is always going to be, what does the company mean by compliance? What does compliance mean to the company? And most importantly, what's it mean to the individuals who are responsible for that? Because we can have compliance departments made up of IT, security, we can have them made up of health and safety, environmental, HR is compliance. So what does compliance actually mean? I thought this was fantastic. I could lean on ISO. I did not know this existed, but ISO 19600, as it is there, it's quite an old standard, but I thought this was really good and really interesting. So I'm just going to switch on to some ISO talk now. This is ISO 19600. It's coming out in around 2014. It is compliant management systems. What I want to do is just show you the difference between 19600, 45,001 for safety, and 18788 for security. What I'm going to show you is they have the same high-level structure, and I always go on about the high-level structure. Really important as safety practitioners and security practitioners that we know this. If you don't know it, all I would say is, my little bit of experience that I've got, learn it, because once you learn the high-level structure, it will massively improve your understanding of compliance in an organisation. It will improve your understanding of risk in an organisation. It will improve your understanding of an organisation and the structure. We got context, we got leadership, we got planning, we got support, we got operations, we got performance evaluation, and then we've got improvement. by far the best mnemonic for me that's brought me sort of advances in my own career. And many people are interested in auditing. It used to be thought of as boring. I see auditing as a progression. If you're at a senior leadership position and you don't value auditing, you've really missed something. If you're not at a senior leadership position and you're on the way up, learn it, because you will be such a value to the organisation, but you will also be a value to yourself. You will certainly be a value to yourself to be able to move on. Okay, so what do I want to show you? I'm going to show you the high-level structure, but not just that. I'm going to show you where the term compliance and the need for compliance, even though this is a compliance management system, which could say security management system, it could say environmental quality and all of the rest, that follows the high-level structure. It's the same structure, but compliance, the term compliance, sits in all of the other standards anyway. It sits there anyway. So what this is actually asking you to do is already within the other standards. So compliance management systems, we'll just quickly look at the high-level structure here. And there's going to be a couple of areas where there's going to be overlap. So we have compliance obligations. Those obligations are going to be written into the other standards, but we're also going to have a look at where the compliance element falls down into performance evaluation, where we've got monitoring, measurement, analysis and evaluation. We're evaluating the compliance because we're evaluating our performance. In the other standards it is the same. We're going to be doing an evaluation of compliance against that individual standard. Really, really, really cool and really important. I'll show you that and then I'll just come back to that. So what do I mean? If we go into 45,001 now, which is for health and safety, when we come into here, we have that. Where are we? The determination of legal requirements and other requirements. That's where we are having to find our compliance obligations, not just laws. It's not just a legal register. It could be your permits, it could be your contracts, other requirements. That's your own policies and procedures. If you've stipulated something, then that is part of your management system. So we will see it in the planning area, because we have to plan for that. How are we planning to identify those? Once we've identified them, then the management system is forcing us to do that evaluation of compliance. So that's really important. They link, and they're going to do the same in a security operations management system, a SOMS under 1878. We're going to have the same high level structure, but we're also going to have, there we have legal and other requirements. In the planning phase for our security operations management system, our SOMS, in the planning phase, we are looking for those compliance obligations, the legal and the other requirements. If you manage vessels, if you're doing security on board on vessels, what are the legal and other requirements, compliance obligations for operating a vessel? If you're doing land-based security, what are the legal and other requirements for operating in that country? Very important. So again, we're going to drop down from the planning. We've had to plan it. So when I audit you, are you planning that? Then we come all the way down into performance evaluation. Then we have your evaluation of compliance. So even though we have a compliance actual ISO, compliance obligations and the requirement to plan them, to find them, to identify them, and the requirement to evaluate them, that sits in the ISOs anyway. Really good, really good. But last thing I'll sort of look at, this is an old ISO, but I'm a bugger for frameworks. I love frameworks. It gives us something to work off. So many times when working with organisations, I'm fortunate because I go in, I'm independent. When I go in, I see that the discussions, the really good discussions going on. We just need to make that a visualisation. And here we have a visualisation of a compliance management system. It's really good. Again, you can pause the video if need be. It's the same old, same old. We are looking at the scope. What are we covering? We're identifying those issues, identifying interested parties, leading into our policy, then our mandate and our commitment. It's then leading into the identification of compliance obligations. Like we said just now, your compliance obligations register. You can also see the plan, do, check, act piece in here. which I don't think is actually mentioned. I think it does mention it somewhere in here. I'm new to the standard, but you can see it sort of develop, implement, evaluate, maintain. Very similar terminology, but really, really good. Leadership, commitment is at the start. It's at the heart, isn't it? Not just the start. That's why it's there. If you don't have that leadership and commitment, you ain't getting anywhere, and it's going to be problematic. An international organisation I'm so lucky to support at the moment, mandate and commitment at the highest level, and that is so good when that's on, when the MD and when the hierarchy are on board. Let's just make this better. Because you can make it better, because at the end of the day your organisation's not going anywhere unless you make it go anywhere, as in go under. So very important. Great. What else do I want to look at? Books. I love looking at books. I've put something down here because it's going to lead into the final slide. Culture. The culture of the organisation. I've seen people say on LinkedIn who have got doctorates who are, there's no such thing as culture. How ridiculous of a statement is that? Culture is absolutely everywhere. It is pervasive throughout all organisations. Culture is in departments. Culture was in our sections when we were in the military. Culture is everywhere, and one person can impact that culture. It's really, really important to understand that culture exists. Culture we should be looking at. We should have a culture management system. In our obligations, we should be looking at culture. Culture should be in our risk assessments. Because if it's not, and it's let to run rife, like certain companies I've worked in the past, what's left to run rife? Bullying, victimisation. If that's let to run rife in an organisation, then, you're ruining people's lives, You're ruining people's lives. So let's talk about what book do I want to look at. This is an awesome book. A lot of the guys out there doing studying nowadays, this book here, I got to say, fantastic. Really, really good. So hopefully I can click into that. Here we go. And organisational culture. Let's have a look here. Chapter 15 in here. And it's so good. Let me sort myself out 1 second. Let me get off that. Right. The idea that culture is a form of management control over the behaviour and identities of individuals is far too nebulous. It all depends on the personality and actions of immediate supervisors and or senior managers. The idea that culture is a form of management control over the behaviour and identities of individuals is far too nebulous. It all depends on the personality and actions of immediate supervisors. What is your opinion? To what extent do you believe your organisation culture asserts control over your behaviour? I think that is a sliding scale of change. I remember the previous organisation I worked in, and it's on my LinkedIn, of course. I don't mind saying it, because sometimes we've got to. I remember getting there, and my job has always been to support the main man, support the main woman, support the organisation. That's what I've done all my life. Yet in that organisation, I was bound by my duty to explain to senior leadership and I'm going to say it, the error of their ways. And why would I say that? Because right at the very start, when you have people coming to you saying there's issues, coming to you saying there's problems, and then we have to do our analysis. So what do? We look at the staff retention rates. We look at why staff is leaving. And when we analyse that, it's not too hard to see the reasons why. So what is my belief in that? I believe someone like myself, who's just honest and simple, just like anybody else really, when you join an organisation, you're upbeat. You're like a lamb in March. You're bouncing about. You got daffodils coming up all over the place if you're in Wales, but you're bouncing about, and it's really good. You want to impress. You want to do everything, not to the detriment of others, but you're there. You're learning the ropes. You're really trying to find out what's going on, and your personality. Your personality, you're being you. After a while, that can drag you down. If the culture in that organisation is such that people aren't happy, then that will start to knock you down. And the actions of immediate supervisors and or senior managers will affect you. Okay, in previous organisation I was talking about, the managers were fine. They were absolutely fab. But the actual culture was toxic, and it was toxic because this is what I'm trying to get from this. If, as a senior management team, you create a toxic culture, that will be pervasive throughout the entire organisation. It'll be pervasive through the individuals, and it will come out somewhere. It will be damaging to your organisation as much as it's damaging to the individuals. And then you will see people leaving, and that's it. So it's interesting. You hear people say people don't leave. What do they say? People don't leave organisations; they leave bosses. I think there's a lot of truth in that, but again, we can't generalise about that, because people progress and they just want to move on as well. So that's very interesting. So culture is very, very interesting. Last thing I'm going to talk about is organisational failure. This is from some of our slide deck for root cause analysis that we do. Organisational failure. Let's have a quick look at this. I find this absolutely fascinating. What are we going to use to look at organisational failure? Well, if you haven't read the book, or you're not aware of the book, Organisational Accidents, or as you can see here from James Reason, Organisational Accidents Revisited. Very small book, fantastic book. The depiction I'm going to show you now comes from this book. I've slightly annotated it, but it does come from this book. And what does James Reason, what framework does he give us here? So we've got an accident or loss. We're going to see now how the way the organisation is run can lead to that accident or loss. So we have organisational processes, we have leadership, we have the culture, and we have the management decisions. We also have the defences. Okay, so there should be some defences there to prevent the accident, loss, injury, bad reputation, whatever it is. We have some defences. There's always going to be a gap in those defences. Okay, so this is what this is all about. I have added leadership to this because I believe leadership is critically important. If the organisation has good leadership, then we won't get the failure in the other areas. So we have organisational processes, we have that pathway, okay, that leads through. I like to think of this as uphill decisions, uphill culture, uphill decisions affecting downstream personnel. What does that look like? So the organisation itself, the company, impacts the workplace that we work in. The way the organisational processes, the leadership, the corporate culture, and the management decisions, the way they are set up will affect the workplace. It will produce error-producing conditions and violation-producing conditions if this is all run negatively. Really important, this. Really important. There is a HSG document you can look at there, HSG 48. It's to do with reducing, it's influencing behaviour, reducing incidents, something like that. It's a very, very good document. I do have it. I do have the failure, human failure element in a different part of these slides, which we're not going to cover today. But ultimately, look at that. If the senior leadership, if the culture is weak, it'll lead into the workplace, which will then lead into the individual person, human error, violations. And then ultimately, when we create this environment for violations, then ultimately, okay, we're going to get through those layers of defense. So important. If we think of this as security, we've got like our outer perimeter, we've got our inner perimeter, then we potentially got the building security, the locks, bars, grills. But ultimately, these are layers of protection. Think of a castle, think of it on the hill, think of a moat, think of the visualization, visualize it. That's what I do. So I think it's a really, really, really good slide, and it does enable sometimes the penny to drop. Organisational failures, organisational culture. I know the next slide I've got up there is, again, it's not from this slide. I'm not going to go through it all, but I'll cover this in probably a bite-size course. So fantastic. I think I've waffled on for probably longer than I thought I was going to, but it's something I'm really passionate about. I haven't done one of these updates for a little while. It's nice to get back on the horse. So what do we look at? We looked at just some thoughts about the guys doing the job properly. We looked at the book, we looked at culture, we looked at the standards, we looked at the compliance and how that is the compliance requirement sits in all the ISOs anyway. We looked at that, and then we finished off with our slide deck there. So I hope you found that useful. Thank you very much for watching. As always, don't trust it, test it. Yeah, we're trying to keep our heads in the books, boots on the ground, keeping people safe, fighting forward, all those good analogies, strength in depth. Have a good weekend. Thanks for watching.